Welcome. I'm your host, Laura Williamson, and this is Bare Fitness. It's so great to have you here with us today. We have another awesome show. Today, we're going to talk about knowing your body and listening to your body. And our special guest today is Charlotte DeBrabrandt. And she's going to talk to us about all things girls, the breast, but more importantly, how to listen to your body and pay attention. She's going to actually discuss her journey with us, her breast cancer journey, and we're going to get into it. I know I seem like I'm making light of things, but it's a very serious topic. But I wanted to start off on a very pleasant and light note because Charlotte is here to pretty much give us some really helpful tips and information, and just to talk about it, just put it out there. So Charlotte, welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great pleasure.
Yeah.
And you know, it gives me so much just spirit and joy to give back in that way. Yeah. So for all the communities and individuals out there fighting, keep fighting.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of it, and we must get there to the end.
Yeah. All right. You know, we were talking a little bit earlier about the support and what's out there for everyone. And I learned even for myself personally, like you do not know, you are not aware of all the help that is available until you are in it.
Absolutely.
And maybe that's just because you don't have to think about it. It's not a consideration. But it is, there is a difference between, I believe, knowing someone who's going through it versus being with the person as they're living through it, being with them every day, day to day. And it's a challenge. It is a struggle that exists for a lot of people. I don't think there are too many people nowadays who haven't experienced someone somewhere in their life that has had to battle this. But the point is there are ways to get through it. There is help available. And I'm just going to ask you to start from the beginning. Please,
Absolutely.
Could you share your story with us?
I would love to. It was beginning of last year.
Mm-hmm.
And my journey with breast cancer started with the 3 words that changed my life forever. When, out of the blue, as a healthy, young, driven lady, I was told, you have cancer. And these 3 words, they completely brought fear in me. They caused such emotional distress that you just cannot put into words. What does it mean? Endless questions. How do you communicate with your families? What happens next? Do I still live? Do I have a chance? What kind of cancer? So there are questions over questions, and you are completely overwhelmed with these 3 words. You actually first believe, I'm sure they got the diagnosis wrong. This is not you. It cannot be you.
Right.
And from the beginning of that journey until where I'm at now, a lot happened. So now I'm here advocating for early detection saves, because it really, that is the only cure. This is the only way how we can prevent from cancer from spreading, getting worse. The earlier we detect it, the better we have a chance to fight it. That's a fact. So how do we detect it early?
Right.
And I was not educated on that topic in the past. You know, my early education, and I'm well educated, but you, as a woman, you're always being told, oh, don't get pregnant, use the pill, use condoms.
Right.
You're always educated in certain other areas, just not cancer.
Right.
And I have to say that it just struck me completely by surprise. I come from a family who have never suffered of cancer. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I run half marathons globally. I just ran one while being on treatment 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
And even though you may have a very healthy lifestyle, eating healthy, it just hits you. So there are certain ways how you go about it. And it's, you know, knowing your body, listening to that inner voice. If something is just not feeling right, do something about it. And I had a swollen breast. And I just thought, it will go away. I spoke to my family. I spoke to my gynecologist. Don't worry, it will go away. It's a swelling. And no one really even would have thought at the age of 35 that it was such a rare, horrible disease. And this, and there was an inner voice telling me to get it checked, to listen to yourself. And I kept on ignoring it at the beginning. And until I really realized, I went to the doctor, I got it checked. When I even heard the information, oh, don't worry, it's a swelling. When I ordered my Uber to go home, it was actually my mom and me who then said, but why don't we just do an ultrasound and just get it checked? And I was explaining my story that I went back to the doctor's office, asked for a scan. They said, are you sure you don't really need it? Okay, then call this number. And I got an appointment 3 months later. And then I went back to the doctor's office. I'm like, I'm so sorry, but I have a swelling. I'm now feeling pain, and it may have by then been already psychological pain because you just think there is something. Could you call and could I try to get an early appointment? So we tried, and we got 6 weeks, and then when I said, but I am in pain, I asked the third time, and suddenly a window opened up for the afternoon. So we're talking about Friday afternoon from 3 months to the same afternoon. So that means self-advocating for yourself.
That's right.
If you know that there is something not feeling right, follow your instincts. Do not ignore them. Because frankly speaking, only you know if there is something not right. So I was advocating for myself, persistently, consistently trying to get that ultrasound. And from that day, we discovered a 12.4 centimeter mass. All right, so it's already a big mass I'm carrying around with me. So we didn't even think that it could have been a solid mass. So we thought it was maybe past drainage. So I went back for a Monday session to try and get it drained, but there was nothing to drain. And that was the moment that we had to take a biopsy, cut part of the mass, and I received my results the following Thursday, 7 p.m. Friday, 9 a.m., I got submitted for the first time in my life to see an oncologist. And that Friday morning, 9 a.m., I actually did not leave the hospital until Sunday night. They started with an immediate chemotherapy on Saturday. I stayed overnight. We did all the scans during the night. And then we realized that we are not just dealing with a tumor. We have a big mass, stage 3, inflammatory. That's why I had the swollen breast, inflammatory breast cancer, triple negative, stage 3. But it had already gone to lymph nodes, to some other areas of the body. And we weren't sure how to maneuver from here. So what did I do? During that oncologist visit, actually during the phone call at 7 p.m., I was alone at home when I received that phone call. And I really didn't know what to do. My parents, my family, they were in Europe. And I really thought, this really cannot be me. Like, I'm feeling fine. So during the night, I kindly asked that incredible doctor if he could call me again in 5 minutes when I can get hold of my family, which was already 2 a.m. for them. And that incredible doctor called me back and was willing to speak to my family at that time. And then the next morning, I had my phone with my whole family sitting there, and we were having that from the immediate start, a very open conversation. I included my whole family right from the start. There was no stage that I thought I should be doing this alone. And frankly speaking, I also thought, why do I need to then repeat myself to my parents to explain everything? So just include them from the beginning. And I would say, long story short, it's now been 6 months of very intense treatment, Keynote 522, Then I had the surgery. Once we reduced the tumor, I had the surgery. After the surgery, unexpected for everybody, we found 31 more cancer nodes out of the blue, which put me into a very new chemo treatment, and that was a treatment for stage 4 patients, high toxicity, which after the first time, second time, I lost all of my hair. So it depends on the toxicity level.
Okay.
That's when you lose your hair.
Okay.
It depends on certain components of the chemotherapy.
Okay.
So just saying a statement, any chemo removes your hair, that's not true, because I am on treatment right now. So after my 6 months of treatment, and then now I continued 1 more year of chemotherapy, and we are in current discussions whether to extend it for actually 2 more years now.
Okay.
Just because of other elements that have occurred.
Okay.
But you see, it's a staged process, and you're completely overwhelmed with all this information. So my recommendation for anyone out there is really take it step by step, baby steps, and constantly when you're overwhelmed with sadness and fear and grief, and you just crawl up in the corner of your shower and just let the water splash on you, and you just really have bad thoughts in your head. That's the time that you must pick yourself up. There's no point of giving up. You must put your head up, your chin up physically, and your eye, and that automatically brings your eyes forward. Don't look down, because that's just when the tears start rolling. I always kept my eyes up, and that will just dry off the tears, and it helps me to look forward. And I have to say, advocating for myself, constantly observing your body, side effects. You need to constantly report out, communicate. But most importantly, find areas of knowledge. And that's why I've turned to the American Cancer Society with their tremendous amount of knowledge, resources, programs, communities, information, where I became more intelligent as a breast cancer warrior to gear up, filled my rucksack with information.
That's right.
Go to my doctor and have a meaningful conversation. What I've never done is turned up to the doctor unprepared. I've made sure that I always had my set of questions. I always took physical notes. I always had my family member. I tried to have family members with me. My brother came flying from Europe, accompanying me to every chemotherapy, driving me. I was so lucky
that is amazing.
that I had somebody to drive me. But then again, the American Cancer Society also has programs where they facilitate driving, programs to go to your chemotherapy. They have programs where you can also sleep and have better accessibility to your chemotherapy. So, you know, there are resources that you just need to inform yourself. Your knowledge is king. And that's why during each of my visits, I was just geared up with knowledge, trying to understand. I'm a person, and I completely respect that does not apply to others. I like to have a lot of knowledge and know and read, and I started reading a lot of that medical, the medical cases, so I could ask more targeted questions specifically to my case, specifically to the next steps, having a plan B, knowing what is ahead. To be honest, managing expectations, because the more you know, the better I can also prepare. This chemotherapy is going to make me feel like that. This chemotherapy may have these side effects. And that helped me just to maneuver, prepare a little bit. And we had chemo sessions. They lasted up to, I'm not kidding, 8 to 11 hours. But after 11 hours, I remember my brother telling me, we have a 45-minute window to get some food, because then the side effects would kick in. And that can be anything from vomiting, this nausea, bowel problems, but then also I had very big, my nervous system hurt me a lot. My legs, I had a lot of cramps. I was screaming, crying of the pain. So it was my partner who had to sometimes for 2 hours sit and like really help me to feel my legs again. And we always had this, so you need to understand how do you react during your chemotherapy to the chemo, and what can you do. And I learned that as time progressed, while I was getting my chemotherapy and while I was eating during chemo, the side effects became less. So I started nibbling on the sweet green salad, get a big salad bowl and just nibble. And that sometimes took me a good hour. Like each one, just take your time nibbling, but eating, constantly eating, getting during that treatment, drinking. I cannot emphasize how important it is to drink. Ginger tea, anything ginger based.
Right.
It did miracles with me.
There's so much there's a lot here. So many things, and I think we could be here for a while, but I'm trying to get as much information similar to yourself out to everyone, so that it's beneficial and they know where to start. Now, how did you know where to start? When you got the diagnosis and where did you go first? Where did you go first? When everything happened, you had the doctor talk to the family and so on and so forth. But how did you know? How did you know did you go to the American Cancer Center? Like, where did you go? What did you do? What was your first step once you got your diagnosis after family and everybody was notified?
So I was very fortunate that when they gave me the diagnosis, the doctor at night said, and we have you scheduled to see an oncologist in the morning.
Okay.
So for some miracle reason, they had an open slot to see me.
Okay. Okay.
And it was the hospital, the great hospital, who then coordinated me to have access to that doctor.
Okay.
But these are the guardian angels that then help you to also understand what is out there, what resources are out there. We have resources of the American Cancer Society where you can get a tremendous amount of help, of support, communities, stories. But that was at the beginning a little too early, because first I had to find myself and I had to first try and understand this diagnosis. What does it mean? I was very overwhelmed with fear, not knowing what, if I had a chance to beat this, how.
Okay. So then what I'm going to ask you, my next question is going to be then, as women, and I'm getting specific, and maybe I'm being too gender specific, but I feel the need. I find as women, what can happen with us sometimes is we don't pay attention to the information that our own bodies are giving to us. We put other people first, we put other things first, and we'll I'll get to it later. I'm not going to worry about this right now. It's probably not that bad. How could you, or what would you recommend to other women? Because we chatted earlier, and I've also understood from other women that they kind of did the same thing. Like, make sure you get your mammogram, was the advice that I was given from someone. Like, oh, you have to do that. You should definitely do that, because I wasn't doing it. And then I, for whatever reasons, I decided to go. I had to go, or there was something. I wasn't getting any of my mammograms. And then one day something showed up, and I said, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll go get it checked. And then, unfortunately, it was something that was unexpected. So I'll ask you, what would you recommend for someone who's at home and they're not paying attention to themselves? They're not listening to that little voice, because you heard the voice. It was coming to you. It was talking to you loud and clear, and you put it off. You're like, I'll get to it later, or I'm not going to worry about that right now. So what would be your recommendation in that case? Because I know too many people. I've been known to do it myself. And how do you listen to you hear the voice, but the difference is you hear it, but do you act on it? Do you pay attention to it? And how did you do that? Do you still do that? Would you say you're a little bit better about that now?
So first I would like to add that I relocated to the United States in November 2022 for my job.
Okay.
So you can imagine, as a next career goal, as a young, ambitious woman, having that unique opportunity to be able to come to the United States of America with a new grand job, show what I'm made of, what I can do.
Right.
Of course, I had my tunnel vision, and I wanted to prove to my boss and to my company they have not made a mistake investing into me and getting me over here.
Understood.
So in January of 2023, after the holidays, that was when I was ready to kick ass. And the last thing I needed was any health issues to do that. So you can believe me, I brushed off anything. I wanted to prove to my company I was devoted. And the same goes to other ladies out there at home looking after their kids, having that incredible, difficult role, raising a child. They don't have time to listen to any inner voice or even touch their body to see if anything feels off. I know so many mothers, young mothers, who are just trying to find 1 hour a week to at least do a little bit of sports for themselves. And so I completely hear you. I do not believe that the annual screenings and these mammograms, it's not sufficient.
Okay.
It's a must for sure, doing your screenings, but don't wait for the screening.
Right.
You must listen to your instincts.
Yes.
You must start to listen to yourself, especially the numbers are increasing. 1 in 8 women are being diagnosed of breast cancer in their lifetime. And there is new data coming out that for the younger generation, each year, the percentage is going to increase. There is information out there that yes, we have medication, we have better accessibility, the mortality rates have decreased by 40%, but the diagnosis is increasing. And now 1 in 8 women are being diagnosed of cancer, of breast cancer in their lifetime.
Okay.
And if you look at cancer in general, I read this interesting statistic, every 15 seconds there is a new cancer case globally.
So now...
So all I want to say is that the screenings is not enough.
Okay.
You must
be vigilant.
Tonight, everybody out there, in the shower, feel your breast. Feel whether there is any lump. It's so easy to do. And then listen to your body. If there are abnormalities, if there is a swelling, don't brush it off. Don't ignore that nagging feeling when something is just not feeling right. And there is nothing stopping you at all to make a phone call to your gynecologist and make an appointment. Because that phone call on the way to school, on the way back from school, that's the phone call, it could save your life.
Right. Okay, so now we run into advocating for yourself.
Yes.
You know,
Right from
it's
the beginning.
one thing making time for yourself, but now it's advocating for yourself, because as we also know, sometimes it's not so easy to get in and get an appointment when you need it.
Absolutely. And that's when you need to make that phone call and explain your concern, explain the pain, that if you're feeling the pain. And then you will get an appointment, because at the doctor's office, that is the biggest threat, you know.
Yes.
They are very concerned, and there is so much education right now out there for the doctors. They know the numbers are increasing, so making that phone call, and that's already a very big step. And then you take it from there to take it again step by step, advocating for yourself, getting the scans which are necessary, and do not prolong. Don't call in and delay or postpone. Once you get into that habit of postponing, and I know, because when I was doing my chemotherapy, and I was very diligent about my schedule, but I did overhear every week people calling in to postpone chemo. They're not feeling well. Oh, they missed the appointment. Oh, they missed the ride. It's not good enough. you must make that the priority. Your health is your priority. What good can you be to your family if your health is just not going in the right direction?
So I'm going to ask you, this whole conversation is a personal question, really, but why bother giving back? Why bother talking about this now, and why bother sitting here with me today and telling your story? It's a pretty personal story, and like you said, it's been difficult, it's been scary, it's been So why share? Why do that?
After I got my diagnosis, I thought, wow, in my ignorance, at that stage, I didn't know anyone suffering of cancer.
Yes.
No one. The word cancer, until the age of 35, I've never even used it in my mouth.
Okay.
I've never been in communities which were confronted with this horrible disease. And when it hit me, I thought the only way, I need to talk about it. I haven't heard about it. And trust me, I'm well traveled.
Yes.
I've worked in 3 continents, in 5 industries. I'm well traveled, and I've never been in these communities where that was even a factor, not even to talk about. So my immediate reaction was to talk about it.
Okay.
And it was immediately in January, end of January, during getting my chemo, I started a podcast about personal stories. And that podcast went on every 2 weeks, every month. And then in parallel, I started to write articles about it. I created YouTube videos to show how it is going through these different stages during cancer. And all these hours sitting in that waiting room, you see the similar faces. And so I have some YouTube content to explain to the young generation, especially, that if it hits you, do not give up. Now, I did not stop one day of my work. I continued working throughout, even on the chemo chair, speaking to my executive board until I maybe got knocked out from the medication, when I just said, guys, I'm now have to go. And then I just, but I continued working every single day, and that was my cure, because it helped me to remember the girl I was before treatment. It helped me to remember that strong girl, that ambitious girl, and I'm so glad I did not stop working. And I try to engage myself with anything to keep me busy. The more you keep yourself busy, the more you don't grieve. You don't have time to grieve.
Right.
I started writing books. I'm publishing a 3rd book now since the diagnosis. Articles, speaking at any opportunity I can to give back to others. And if I cannot, then I cannot. Maybe I'm too weak, or I'm just really not feeling well. But as much as I can, I'm going to give back. And through these wonderful communities of the American Cancer Society, when fear really hit me, when I was hopeless and I didn't know where to go, what to do with my time, I reached out, and I was able to, if it's maybe volunteer, or if it's just speaking to other members who are affected and keeping yourself engaged, occupied. That is the number one remedy to this all, escaping. And of course, one could argue I'm running away from my diagnosis, but not really. I'm doing my treatment. I have 6 months left now, but I'm yes, my thoughts, I am trying to really put them in another area, so I can constantly work on self-improvement, of creating for others, on giving back. And the more I give back, the more strength I'm receiving. And over the last month, since I've been fighting, of course, a lot of grief has built in my head, and I'm just thinking how unfair, and why me? Why me? I worked so hard my whole life, always dedicated, always trying to improve on myself, always trying to set an example to others. And that's why I then decided to go for this half marathon a couple of weeks ago. And to be honest, Friday from the chemo chair, Saturday to the half marathon, and that was not because I practiced, because I couldn't really work out. It was all in the head. I needed to let it out, and that's how I did it. So what I would say, getting through the treatment, and everybody out there, you cannot compare cancers and you cannot compare challenges. Everybody has a rucksack of challenges, but we are here to inspire each other, to give each other hope, and we are social animals, so we need communities to get strength.
However, with regards to the community, in my mind, I'm trying to bring community together, but what I recognize is we as women, we don't always communicate openly with one another about the things that we go through, even though a lot of the things we go through are very similar. And I know they are similar just because of the job that I do every day, because I'm interacting every day. And then people share with me, and I think, okay, this is great that you're sharing with me. Why is it that we can't share with one another about these things that we're going through? Because if we had support from one another, and for some reason that seems to be difficult. So how would you recommend, and I don't want to keep you because I know we're running low on time, but how would you recommend to communicate that? You communicate it with your family, and you're very open, and I can see that about you, and I feel that about you, but not everybody feels like they can or want to share, or that they'll be looked at a certain light if they share these types of things about themselves. How do you do that? Because I think that's part of advocating for yourself also, is talking about it.
Absolutely. And I do know examples who completely go into their own, lock themselves into the room, and they just want to be alone. But being alone is not it's not the cure. It's not the cure. And I can even sign that for you.
Right.
So if you don't feel comfortable joining a community, which I fully understand, because you don't want to be confronted with others and hearing others' problems. I completely understand.
Right.
But then at least find one or two friends who are just there to listen to you. And by having some sort of just close companion, I'm not talking about sharing it openly, but have some trust people in your network and have an open conversation, how you feel. And most importantly, do not be afraid to ask for help.
That's a big one.
That is the only time in your life
That is a big one.
where you must ask for help, if it's just bringing a cup of tea. And I ask so rarely for help. I could sign that for you.
Yes.
We always think we are stronger, we can do it, we don't need help, but asking for that, and the way to start, because I had to start to ask for help, start by asking for help for the things that you could anyhow do.
Right.
Making yourself that cup of tea.
Yes.
And once you start with the easy things, making yourself a hot water bottle, you know you can get up and do it yourself. But asking for the little things, easy things, you will see that it feels really nice. Not having to get up and just boiling the water for that hot water bottle.
So we're going to have to cut it here because there's so much more that we can talk about. This is an awesome topic.
Thank you for having me.
And then thank you for being here. The goal is to inspire others to advocate for themselves, if you feel something, don't be afraid to speak your truth. If something hurts you, don't be afraid to speak up. Find your voice. Empower yourself to take care of yourself. You're the only you have. And what's the likelihood of someone else doing it for you? So, and besides, you can't give back if you don't give to yourself. You can't take care of your loved ones if you can't take care of you first. And I'm sure the people who love you probably want you around for a while. So take the time, make some time for yourself. We're going to wrap up today. We're going to end. I'm Laura. This is Bare Fitness. This is my beautiful guest, Charlotte. We're going to see you next time. come visit us. We're going to leave some information for you. It should be showing up below, above, and some things at the end. All right, so we will see you soon. Thanks for being here. Take care.